When it comes to important terminology, you need to be familiar with two types of statistical applications. The first type is descriptive statistics, and this is the part of statistics that is concerned with the description and summarization of data. So we will learn how to describe and how to present data. And inferential statistics, this is the part of statistics that is concerned with the drawing of conclusions from data. So that means that we will not only calculate some values, but we will also learn how to interpret those results, how to make conclusions based on the values we estimate. You also need to know the difference between population and sample. So population is a set of all units like people, objects, transactions, or events that we are interested in studying. Whereas a sample, this is just a part of the units of a population or a subset of the units of population. And from this graph, you can get an idea what a sample is. So population is, once again, this all of the units that we are interested in, whereas a sample is just a small part or big part of a larger population. And you also need to keep in mind that in statistics, most often you will only deal with the sample, whereas conclusions will be drawn for the whole population. So in other words, we take a sample in order to make conclusions for the whole population. For example, the population could be all registered voters in California, whereas you might have only a sample of 1,500 voters in California. So you will analyze the data for those 1,500 voters in California, and based on those results, you will make the conclusion about all registered voters in California. Another example of population could be all the cars produced last year by Mercedes, whereas you can only have an access to the sample of 1,000 cars produced by this company. So you will analyze those 1,000 cars, and based on that, you will make a conclusion about all the cars produced by that company within a certain year. And the third example of a population could be all sales made at a certain shop during a given year, whereas you might have only information about 5,000 sales made at a certain shop during a given year. So once again, you will study those 5,000 sales, calculate some values, make some conclusions, and those conclusions will be for the population. There are other terms that you need to be familiar with, like experimental, or it is also called observational unit. And this is often an object like a person, a thing, transaction, or event about which we collect data. And an example of that could be, from the previous slide, voters, cars, sales. So those are the objects that we would like to study. So this is an experimental unit. Whereas a variable, this is a characteristic or a property of an individual experimental unit in the population. For example, we might study the age, gender, or number of years of education of voters from California, or we can, for example, study the price, engine, characteristics of cars. So a car, once again, is experimental unit, and price and engine characteristics, those are the variables that we would like to study. Statistical inference, this is another term that I would like you to keep in your head. And it is an estimate, prediction, or some other generalization about a population based on information contained in the sample. So when we estimate certain values, certain statistical values, in other words, what we do is we do statistical inference. So we draw conclusions about some population based on a sample that we have. And the other term from this slide that you should also remember is measure of reliability. So this is a statement, usually quantitative, so a numeric value, about the degree of uncertainty associated with the statistical inference. And an example of this could be error of estimation. So whenever you get certain results in statistics, whenever you estimate certain values, you might also need to provide some measure of reliability. So you will need to show how reliable, how good your results are. And sometimes they might be unreliable due to some error of estimation. If you make some mistake, or you've got some bad data, this could result into the reduction of reliability of your measures. And during this course, I will teach you how to estimate those measures and how to interpret them. So having said all of this, let's go back to those two types of statistical application. So first of all, descriptive statistics, and it involves 4 elements. So the population or sample of interest. So first of all, you need to define the population that you would like to study and take a sample out of it. Then you need to decide on one or more variables, so characteristics of that population that you would like to investigate, that you would like to study. After this, you need to present some tables, graphs, or numerical summary of those variables, like let's say the average wage, the average age of a voter, I don't know, the race of a voter, so information like this. And then after this, you need to describe or interpret some patterns in the data. Whether, let's go back to those voters from California, whether female tend to vote for this person more than male, and so on and so forth. So to see whether there is something interesting happening in your data. And the second type of statistical application is inferential statistics, and this one includes 5 elements. So population or sample of interest, so the same as in the previous case, you need to identify your population and take a sample out of it. The second element is also the same as in case of descriptive statistics. So you need to identify one or more variables, so characteristic that you would like to study. And the third step, you need to take a sample of those population units and do the statistical inference about the population based on information contained in the sample. So calculate certain values to make some conclusion about the population. And after this, you need to do the test of reliability. So you need to show that your results are indeed reliable by using a certain statistical tool, which I will teach you during this course.